Good afternoon, beautiful people of planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities, those of love, light, truth, peace, honour, integrity, kindness, compassion, sweetness, sincerity. They're out there, people of Earth. They're out there, out in the cosmos. Every now and then you trip over them and you go, "What was that?" Oh, a good, true, loving entity. They're out there, people of Earth. I adjure you and myself to never ever give up and to never ever let the bastards grind me down. Anyway, welcome to Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 1:10 p.m. One more minute and you can make a wish to the angels. If you're into that sort of thing, it's a bit superstitious, but on the other hand, can't hurt, can it? Keeping your options open and being attuned to the multiverse and constant dialogue and monologue. And here we go, 1:11. I'm going to have a quick wish. What do I wish for? What do I always wish for, people there? You have to laugh. I didn't even make the wish because my angels know. They know what it is that I've been aspiring for and praying for and hoping for and falling in and out of love with monsters and getting up and carrying on alone on my journey and occasionally trying again. It's the definition of insanity, making the same mistake over and over and over again. It's getting beyond the realms of insanity now. Now it's starting to feel like some awful curse. But it came to my mind this morning. I have unblocked 2 people that I blocked some time ago because I was dreadfully hurt by their malfeasances. Unblock them. They won't know that I've unblocked them, of course, because algorithms won't be sending my stuff to them, so they're oblivious. But I thought, I'm just going to unblock, like a fucking sphincter muscle. There goes that shit analogy again. I'm just going to unblock all the negativity and just leave it an open channel so it can flow back to them, whatever needs to flow back to them, and whatever remains with me for being sometimes a bit reactive and hurt remains with me too, because I had a role to play in all that too. Falling in love with an unavailable man who played me for a fool. It's just same old really, but I had a role. I could have chosen to not fall in love and not get played for a fool, but do we really have a choice in these things where the heart's concerned, people of Earth? I wonder. Anyway, I've decided to zoom out and look at the big picture and see all the little games that were played, and there were many. They thought I was oblivious, which is cute, really cute. And just, let adult children be adult children and be the mama too. Just zoom out of it, zoom right out, look at the big picture and see who genuinely did actually have good intentions towards me, at least in the beginning. And I've got to thinking a lot about where things started to shift, which was from the moment, this other woman came into play, which was practically thrown in my face to hurt me, of course. I'm not naive and I'm not completely Pollyanna, people of Earth. But there were others in my back door too that were at me for months, who have dropped me like a hot cake since they achieved their aim, which was to alienate and isolate me from a man I'm in love with. I had it in my back too, the sabotage. So no doubt the end of that, and I'm not talking about a love affair, it was never an actual sexual affair, but I'm talking about the sabotage that destroyed that friendship. There was a lot of factors that came into play, you know. A very envious woman and my back constantly at me and at me and at me, accusing me of having an affair I hadn't actually had. I mean, apart from an emotional affair that was one-sided anyway, since I got shucked off like a husk. So what am I saying here? There was a lot of evil influences at play, which I am well aware. So therefore that particular friend has been unblocked, and at some time, I don't know when, if ever, there may be some kind of dialogue or some kind of explanation as to what was really going on, but I doubt it, because that would involve honest communication, 2 ways. So, but anyway, my spirit said to me this morning, just unblock that man, just leave it a pure, open channel for the angels to work on whatever needs to be worked on, and let go, let God. I think that's the best way to have that attitude. Really, at the end of the day, let go, let God. Anyway, in the spirit of letting go and letting God, let me just catch my breath. I feel a little bit overwhelmed at the moment. It's just something just says, Tanya, I admire your courage and your resilience and your tenacity and your deep love for people that probably never wanted it and weren't really worth it, but it's a probability that I don't really know why I was placed in that situation and why I was lured the way I was lured and what was actually required of me. I mean, they asked me to give healing energy to another man from the other band, our mutual friend, which I happily did so, and that healing remains with him, an open channel. It remains until the day he dies, by the way. I don't withdraw on healing. Healing doesn't come from me anyway, it comes literally from God or the ancestors that love you, or the gods, or your own higher mind and your own determination to survive and thrive. So my love for that man, my healing love for that man remains, and no regrets. And as for the other one that was so vicious at the end, because like a petulant little boy, he wanted what he wanted and wanted me out of the way. So be it, so be it. But I will go dancing again. I'll just dance for new bands that I don't know, and I don't know, try not to get involved with people and just keep living my best life like I used to, doing my solitary, eclectic witch walk and just keep to myself. Every time I invite a human man into my life emotionally, I get abused and trampled on, and it's beyond evil and awful, but it's happened every time. So it's something that I struggle with as to why I'm born with that kind of a fate, really. But I hoped it would change. I really hoped it would change when I turned 60, almost as if some magical clock would just click on and everything would just suddenly be cleared away like mist, and I would stand in my own light and authority and be able to welcome a real authentic love at last. And you know what? Could still happen. But anyway, they went over and beyond to ruin my 60th birthday. Those people, that man and his cohorts, which I thought was incredibly callow and vicious. There was no need for that. But ultimately I wasn't all that well anyway, and cancelled going dancing on the 11th because just decided that I didn't feel like being in a space where I was going to be taunted and degraded ever again, and eventually I'll get over myself and find a space where I'm welcome again. It is what it is, people of Earth. But anyway, yesterday I had, this is what happens when you're a powerful woman and you cleave to your truth and you stand against the COVID epoch atrocities. People turn on you because they can't face reality, and I refuse to look at life in any other way, hiding in the shadows of denial and unreality and dis-ease. Refuse. Why should I? I fought long and hard for my own power, my own body autonomy, my own safety, my own heart, and even my own mind, clawing that back after many years on psych meds. I fought a long, hard battle. And do you know what I realised also this morning? That many people out in the scene that I thought were my friends were actually envious of me. Envious of me. I thought about that a lot. I thought that's what was really behind it. Kind of a malignant envy that they think I've got life easier because I don't have to go to work and I don't have a mortgage and I don't have a huge amount of bills to pay because I made sure I got myself out of debt recently. That took me 5 years, by the way, of chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. So people are envious of me, and it's humorous. Envious of little old me. I mean, I might not have any debts, but I don't have any savings or actual money, and yet they were envious of me. It's comical, people of Earth. Very comical. But I guess some of the things they were envious of was the way I held my own and held strong right through, 2020 COVID insanity. I metaphorically lashed myself to the mast of Odysseus's ship and blindfolded myself and just sailed ahead and said, no, we're not buying into any of that nonsense. And thank the goddess and the gods that I did, or I would be dead. I would not have survived these last 5 years of hellscape. Let's be real here. It was a hellscape which I was sent back for by the spirits in 2019. So, and they warned me it would be a hellscape, and I cried and I begged, take me, I said, please take me. No, they've kept me alive for more heartache and more viciousness and more betrayals and more declension. But what can I do? It's just another repeat performance on the cycling around this planet in this circle of life. And I want you to remember, people of Earth, karma's a bitch and it will always get you in the end. Really will. It will get you. I'm obviously paying for some awful, I don't know what crimes I committed in another lifetime, but surely I must have paid enough by now, but that's out of my mortal ken. Who knows when that will end. Anyway, yesterday I had a spirit at me several times during the day, and I was very exhausted yesterday, although I did complete reading bloody Brisbane. I was too exhausted to start reading yesterday yet another book, but I've decided, because I had spirit at me yesterday, and I'm not always obedient very rarely obedient, take orders from other human mortals. Because of my lifetime of abuse and trauma, I know better than to do that. But I do take notice when invisible entities give me ideas or inspirations or suggestions, and I follow through on them. Like, I'm not wearing it, but that beautiful pendant I made, completed on Thursday. So when I'm given inspirations or direct instructions from my angels or my guides or whoever that entity was, I don't know actually, but I do try to honour their request. Let's just put it that way. I don't like the word obey, but I try to honour their request if it's a reasonable one and beneficial and benign and pleasant and not likely to cause harm to anyone. Then I quite happily will honour my unseen one's instructions. So yesterday, several times throughout the day, read W.B. Yeats. They specified, read W.B. Yeats, read W.B. Yeats. I said, why? They said he was a poet and wrote a lot about the fairy realms, which indeed he did do. And I've had this book since I had my brief sojourn at university. You can see on the back I was at that time converting to Judaism, and I had asked my Israeli friend Tali Hukman Rudi to teach me how to write my name in Hebrew script, Tanya in Hebrew. So, like a child full of delight, I wrote my name in Hebrew on everything. And I was so excited about becoming a Jew. It was very important to me at the time. I think that was even before I met my husband, so there was that. But you can see I've got written there also my maiden name, Phillips. So I would have been 17 when I bought this book. No, I started university when I was still 16, turning 17, and I bought it for the modern literature course I was doing. So 16 years old, W.B. Yeats. Anyway, so Spirit wanted me to read this book of poetry to you, and I noticed my pattern as I read the entire book these days, so I'll just start and we'll work through the book, shall we? As we go. I may not read every single poem, but we'll work through it. Why not? And it's a message from my angels wanting me to remember and immerse myself in his wonderful poetry. Just give my glasses a bit of a wipe. There's a lot of poems in this book. So let me just read the introduction to you, people of Earth. William Butler Yeats, 1865 to 1939. I was born 100 years later in 1965. Although I'm nowhere near as talented a writer or poet as he is, let's be real here. Nor am I as a talented occultist as he was either. But anyway, William Butler Yeats was the eldest son of John Butler Yeats, whose family probably came to Ireland from Yorkshire at the end of the 17th century. So late 1600s, or was it late 1700s? No, 1700s. It was intended that John Butler Yeats should follow his father's and grandfather's example and enter the Church of Ireland which is what the eldest son usually did do, actually. But when an undergraduate, he turned skeptic and, after trying the law, became an artist. It's kind of what I did in a way. Not that I earned money from my art, but oh well. That's the point of art sometimes. Just do it. He moved his household several times between Dublin and London. That door's going to drive me crazy, so I'll just shut it. We'll open it wide and have some airflow through the house, I think. Sorry about that. He moved his household several times between Dublin and London, and as money was often scarce, his children spent a good deal of time in Sligo, in the west of Ireland, where Mrs. Yeats' parents, the Pollux Fens, were well-to-do merchants. It's an unusual name, isn't it? Pollux Fens. W.B. Yeats went to the Godolphin School in Hammersmith. Excuse me. I just had lunch and repeating. And later to the high school in Dublin. He then studied at the School of Art in Dublin, where a fellow student, George Russell, A.E., became his friend and shared his interest in mystic religion and the supernatural. He began to write in his late teens with his father's enthusiastic encouragement. His poetry began by echoing Shelley and Spenser and the pre-Raphaelites. His aims were to write for an Irish audience and about Ireland, to recreate a specifically Irish literature. At first he drew upon the fairy and folk tales which he had heard in the west of Ireland, and which he subsequently traced in printed material. So I wonder if that energy that wanted me to read him, because I said, why do you want me to read him, knowing full well actually I just wanted to see what they would say. Well, because of his writing about the fairy. So whoever that energy that pops in now and then, it's a very big energy. It feels like a human being sized person. I think they might be a fairy. You can tell people of Earth. I can't see them, so I can only hear them occasionally. But that one was at me and at me. W.B. Yeats. I said, no, I need to finish bloody Brisbane first. And then did I not say yesterday that I want to read more fluffy and pleasant and light and, well, not all of W.B. Yeats's poems are fluffy and light either, but at least they are often about the fairy folk, which is what Titania's realm represents, Queen Titania of the Forest Fae. So here we go. I don't think that was Queen Titania talking to me either. It was a kind of a male energy, but anyway. I had the weird phenomenon that's been happening a lot lately in the last few months actually. When I went to bed last night, I put on my CPAP mask, which I really hate, but I just have to do it. And I wasn't asleep. I actually didn't sleep most of the night last night. I had very bad insomnia. So I was awake when I felt it. Something jumped on my bed beside me again. It felt like an animal, just a light little pounce on the bed, not like some nights I've had what feels like a human spirit climb into bed and roll over and look at me, which freaks me out, people of Earth. It was just a light like donk on the bed, and it did freak me out because it hasn't happened for about a week, and I was like, oh, whoever that is back. So I just said the Shema, which is Jewish liturgy prayer and protection, and just tried to get to sleep. I wasn't frightened, I was just more observing, waiting to see if they did anything. But anyway, they didn't do anything, thankfully, because I would have been not quite so calm and austere about it right now. There's one thing about having, spirits visit you and Twitter and chat at you than physically jumping on your bed feels a little bit personal somehow. But anyway, they're working with me, they just said. That's fine. They can work with me and I'll work with them with deep respect for our separate beingnesses, me as a ordinary mortal human and them as fae. It's a bit hard to work together when you're two completely different spiritual species, but love is the law, love under will, and the multiverse is immense. Right, his aims were to write, I read it again. His aims were to write for an Irish audience and about Ireland, to recreate a specifically Irish literature. I think when I was reading that before, I was thinking about J.R.R. Tolkien, who was an Englishman but spent a lot of time in Ireland. I think he was, having many discussions with W.B. Yeats as well, and I think they drew upon each other's knowledge about Irish lore and mythology. At first he drew upon the fairy and folk tales which he had heard in the west of Ireland, and which he subsequently traced in printed material. In the poems of The Rose, he began to use material from the Gaelic legends, the Cuchulainn saga. I may not have pronounced that properly, by the way. C-U-C-H-U-L-A-I-N saga, and the tales of the Fianna, F-I-A-N-N-A, which he read in 19th century translations. He was active in creating the movement known as the Irish Literary Renaissance. After Parnell's death in 1891, there seemed an opportunity to draw youthful national feeling to a movement with a non-political aim, and so he busied himself founding literary societies, making speeches and writing articles and reviews in papers and journals in order to create a public sympathetic to his ideas and hopes for a distinctively Irish literature. During the 80s and 90s, heterodox religious movements claimed much of Yeats's interest in his search for some system in which he could believe. His father's rationalism and the aftermath of the Darwinian controversy had precluded him, he said afterwards, from accepting Orthodox Christianity, and he explored instead Theosophy, Rosicrucianism, Platonism, Neoplatonism, the writings of Swedenborg and Burma, and above all, Blake, whose works he edited with Edwin Ellis during 1891 to 1893. I think by that they mean William Blake. He turned to spiritualism, even to magic, but always, even in the midst of this search for belief, his mind remained partially sceptical, ironic, even potentially mocking. He took an increasingly active interest in nationalist politics, at first under the influence of John O'Leary, an old Fenian leader who had spent many years in exile in Paris, and later of Maud Gonne. Gone? Gonne? Gone? Gonne. She was the daughter of an English colonel and had become a revolutionary, my kind of girl. Who doesn't like a good revolution? You can conduct it without killing anyone though, because I'm not that kind of a revolutionary. I'm an iconoclast. I just like to tear old systems down and rebuild something fresh and new and humanitarian and humanistic and life-affirming. I wish I could do that anyway, in my imagination. And it was actually my psychiatrist who referred to me as an iconoclast when I was in full-blown war with the COVID epoch, 2020 to 2022. Well, I'm still kind of at war with it. That war will never end, because I will never forgive them for costing me my progeny and, my beloved friends and family's health. Never will I forgive them. Them being the globalists and the shillers, and the shillers were the worst, weren't they? Vile they were. And the pharmaceutical magnates that peddled that evil shit. But anyway, where were we? Oh yes, admiring a woman who was an actual revolutionary. Well, I could have been one if I didn't have mixed vision and could actually shoot a gun straight, but there was that. I only found that out when I failed at archery. Another thing I failed at wasn't till the last class that they realised you can't see because you're looking with your non-dominant eye. I think they could have spared me $325 and told me that at the beginning, am I right? Oh, vile it was. But anyway, that's how I found out I can never, well, I could. I'd have to learn to shoot left-handed, shoot arrows or shoot a gun. Left-handed to match my left eye, which is dominant. Trust me to have a left eye dominant. I'm not much of a lefty, I'm more of a centrist, I think. I'm not sure really where I sit in politics, but anyway, I just find that funny. Just find the whole thing very funny. So I'm really quite useless if you're wanting to use me for your revolution, people of Earth. But I do write with words and I do fight with words and I do stand in my truth. So, the pen being and the mind being the ultimate weapon, mightier than the sword. I guess I am a revolutionary then. Let's take some credit for something, shall we? Have some self-esteem, not dance around other people's treachery and abuse dynamics putting me down all the time. Fuck them. But where were we? Maud Gonne, I'll pronounce it Gunn since she was of English extraction. She was a superbly beautiful woman with whom Yeats fell in love when he first met her at the age of 23. Oh, how sweet. He realised his literary aims and activities were not likely to impress Maud Gonne, who was in favour of violent action. He therefore became, you almost have to laugh, don't you? He therefore became deeply engaged during 1897 and 1898 in a political movement intended to unite different nationalist elements in Ireland. He even joined the secret extremist revolutionary Irish Republican Brotherhood for a time. Dear goddess. The poetry Yeats wrote during these crowded years, when he was poor, establishing himself by contributions to journals and fighting to create a public for Irish literature, reveals little of his own life beyond the unhappiness of his defeatist, unrequited love affair, him being a sensitive soul, her being a warrior goddess. Was never going to be a good match. Ask me how I know. I can't be around weak men, weak, inept, spineless, sadistic men either. Ugh, blood runs cold. His poetry became steadily more elaborate, more mysterious and inscrutable during the 90s as he distilled his essences of mournful spiritual beauty. By the publication of The Wind Among the Reeds in 1899, he had moved a long way from his early desire to write popular poetry. He had gone through a period of learning his craft, discussing technique with his fellow members of the Rhymers Club, which met in a Fleet Street public house, the Cheshire Cheese. Delightful title. Poets of the 90s who included Lionel Johnson, John Davidson, and Ernest Dowson. And now, influenced by what his friend Arthur Symons, the critic, had told him of the symbolists of Verlaine and Mallarmé, and by the work of Villiers, de L'Isle Adam, and Maeterlinck, he was writing intense yet rarefied poems, delicately beautiful and weakly adjectival. He was, I find that interesting way of turning the phrase, weakly adjectival. Trying to consider what he actually means by that. He was bringing his early work of the Celtic Twilight period to its fullest, most elaborate development. This style changed gradually at first, as his next volume, In the Seven Woods, 1903, indicates by the new tone of its love poetry, which is more personal and realistic. But in 1903, Maud Gunn married John McBride, another revolutionary. Fitting, I told you, warrior goddess. Needs to be with a man with a bit of spunk in him, and I don't mean spoon people. I mean courage and power and manliness and proud and happy to be with you. Right, where was I? And Yeats was deeply hurt. Oh, bless. There's nothing worse than being shucked off like a husk. But sometimes what feels like the worst possible thing at the time might turn out to be the best possible thing in the end. Self-determination, courage under fire, holding your own on planet Earth and continuing your dance alone, keeping your head high and waiting for the right man with the right amount of honour to come into your life. Right. Now he could merely record memories and old hopes, paying tribute to her great beauty and his own celebration of it. In a superb series of poems, Words, A Woman Homer Sung, No Second Troy, In the Green Helmet and Other Poems, 1910, he compares her to Helen. By that they mean Helen of Troy. She is without blame, for she is, like Helen, beyond praise or comment. This volume indicates an almost complete transition of style, for here Yeats introduces topical affairs and his own views and beliefs, as well as recording the emptiness of his passion. The poems are simple, even flatly prosaic at times, for Yeats was preoccupied with theatre business, management of men. He had become disillusioned with Irish politics and politicians, largely as a result of his experiences with the 98 Association and the IRB, and he had returned to a long-held ambition of creating an Irish theatre. He was helped in this by Lady Gregory, the widow of an Anglo-Irish landowner. He first met her at Cooley Park, her house in County Galway, in 1896, and the following year he spent the first of many summers there. It was an ideal place for him to recover his health from the incessant emotional and financial strains of previous years. And Lady Gregory provided him with an ideal ambience. He helped her to collect folklore. He lived a regular life. He came to develop a belief in the virtues of both aristocratic and peasant life, and with Lady Gregory's practicality and determination to aid him, he brought a national theatre into being. In the first years they were aided by Edward Martin, a neighbouring landowner, and George Moore, whose brief association with the Irish literary movement is told so well in Ave Salve Vale. Salve Vale. Ave Salve Vale. Got there in the end, people of Earth. I know, dear goddess. Don't mention my love life. It's like a long, bad pronunciation. The stuttering and the stammering and a fucking death spiralling. And I'm up on my feet, people of Earth, and I'm looking at it, looking down, with an ounce of whimsy and bemusement. The play Yeats had earlier written for Maud Gunn, The Countess Kathleen, was performed in 1899. Other plays followed, and in 1902, when Martin and Moore had dropped out of the movement, Kathleen Ni Houlihan, the supreme expression of Yeats's early nationalism and love, was performed with Maud Gunn in the title role. When the Abbey Theatre was established in 1904, see, it's hard to kill real love, isn't it? It really is hard to kill it. You still find a way to keep certain people in your life on some level, even just very tenuously and loosely, because the thought of them not being in your life anymore feels like the most abject horror. I have to laugh. But anyway, the Mamati rides on, Mustang Quay, push, push, push into her future, wild and free, how it should be. When the Abbey Theatre was established in 1904, Yeats became its production manager until 1910. This was an unselfish role, for the theatre moved away from his own ideals of poetic drama towards the realistic work of other, younger dramatists. A further piece of unselfishness was his spirited defence of Synge's play The Playboy of the Western World in 1907. He had met Synge in Paris in 1896 and had urged on him the idea of visiting the Gaelic-speaking Aran Islanders and making them the subject of his writing. Synge had become a co-director with Lady Gregory and Yeats of the limited company which replaced the previous National Theatre in 1905. His work was unpopular with nationalist opinion, which regarded the Playboy as a slur on Irish manhood. Yeats courageously insisted on continuing the play despite hostile audiences, but in the process he became even more disillusioned by his blind, bitter land. His next volume of poems, Responsibilities, 1914, contains an entirely changed poetry, the antithesis of his early work, stripped of its decoration and mystery. In this he turned to savage satire and invective, defending great art against the Philistines. Synge and Sir Hugh Lane, Lady Gregory's nephew, stand as the symbols of the artist and the enlightened patron. Lane's is offering his collection of pictures as a gift to Dublin, on condition that a suitable gallery be built to house it, had not been properly appreciated, just as Synge's art had been despised by Dublin. Yeats began to praise the refinement and public spiritedness of aristocratic life, drawing images from the great Renaissance patrons of Italy, and he also veered to the other extreme of a gusty enjoyment of coarseness in the poems he wrote about beggars. He repudiated all the Celtic twilights, embroideries out of old mythologies, in A Coat. He recorded his disillusionment with the realities of Ireland in The Fisherman, and he inveighed against her ingratitude to her benefactors in To a Shade. Behind all this sounds the groundswell of his frustrated love for Maud Gunn. Because of a barren passion's sake, he cannot offer his ancestors' children to continue the family line. Smartasses. I have that in common with him since I have no progeny. I mean, I have daughters, but there'll be no progeny. As far as we can tell, anyway. One's 39, one's almost 5 days' time will be 38, so it's not likely. Let me take a moment here. I've been robbed of so much in life. So much. But that was the final kick. When the COVIDian bastards and shillers stole that out from under me as well. You bastards. You evil bastards. Let me just catch my breath. Because of a barren passion's sake, he cannot offer his ancestors' children to continue the family line. And yet his constant praise of her beauty and her love of the people whom he had begun to distrust continues. It spills over into poems published some years later in The Wild Swans at Cool, 1919, such as Her Praise, His Phoenix, and The People. The Easter Rising of 1916 took Yeats by surprise. The revolutionaries he had come to despise attained heroic stature, and it seemed to him that a terrible beauty was born. Maud Gunn's husband, from whom she had been separated, was one of the 16 leaders executed, and Yeats went to France and proposed to her again, but, as in the past, she refused him. Then he asked her permission to propose to her adopted daughter, Isolde, to whom he had written several poems in preceding years. Isolde refused him, and I don't know, I mean, look, it was not too hard on the eye. He must have been a bit too intense, or, I don't know, desperate. Came across as too weak, or I can't understand it. It's got my pout though. The pout of the unrequited. What becomes of the unrequited, W.B. Yeats? You turn your genius to make great art and laugh in the face of other people's atrophy and ignorance and sadism and hatred. Right, where were we? Let's pull it together, people. Pull it together. It's quite comical when you think about it. One day I'll write a comedy about the whole thing. The whole thing all becomes rather silly when you zoom right out and zoom back in and out. In and out, going in and out of my life isn't easy. Something like that. Something like that. And it doesn't matter now, does it? What matters is my continuing survival on this planet, finding a way to thrive and surrounding myself with good, kind people. That's what matters. Right, Isolde refused him. And in October 1917, so he was quite long in the tooth by then, mind you. He was born in 1865, so by 1900 he was 35. Add 17, that's 40. He was 52, only just settling down at 52. I get why the younger woman wasn't keen. I mean, for the love of all the gods. But anyway, when you faff about and leave it too late to get married, even as a man you become less of a good catch, people of Earth. So stop being the eternal bachelor and get with the fucking program, am I right? Anyway, in those days women didn't have quite as much choices, so it says a lot. They kept rebuffing him. Anyway, he's still a brilliant poet and a wonderful occultist. Together we shall pout, my darling. Pout. Oh, you have to laugh. Anyway, and in October 1917, he married Georgie Hyde Lees, whom he had known for some years. Now, bear in mind she was his third choice, so knowing her didn't really mean that much, did it? His marriage made his life serene and full of order, because he had someone to do all the bloody work for him. Honestly, read between the lines. And it also provided the starting point for an altogether unexpected conjunction of his romantic and his realistic strains of poetry. Mrs. Yeats then attempted automatic writing because Yeats was unhappy at the beginning of their marriage, through concern over Isolde Gunn. Later poems, Two Songs of a Fool, To a Young Beauty, Michael Robarts and the Dancer, and Owen Ahern and his Dancers, illustrate this. Told you she was third option. How did I know? Oh yeah, I read this book when I was young. It's in my memory. In the memory, people of Earth. You have to laugh. Never be someone's option. To her surprise, odd sentences were produced on a subject of which she knew nothing. Yes, Yeats was excited and stimulated and spent hours every day on the decipherment of this automatic script. He seemed to be able to believe, even temporarily, in the system thus built up, which he published privately under the title of A Vision in 1926 and later through Macmillan's in 1937. This work is a system of symbolism, as Yeats explains in A Packet for Ezra Pound, 1934, which deals with various types of human personality, with the gyres or Gaias of historical change and with the supernatural. It provided in part a structure for Yeats's thought, for the ideas he had been assimilating from his unusual reading. Sorry, but it grinds my gears that I don't know how to pronounce that.
Gyres.
So I was right the first time and then second guessed myself. With the gyres of historical change and with the supernatural. It provides in part a structure for Yeats's thought, for the ideas he had been assimilating from his unusual reading. Gyres, 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 gyres. What does it actually mean? Let's really knuckle it down, people of Earth. A gyre is a large system of rotating ocean currents, essentially a giant whirlpool in the ocean. Well, there you go. Spank me ass and call me Judy. I didn't know that either. So hence many the whirlpools of historical change and with the supernatural, otherwise known as going down the rabbit hole and coming back out for a very long time, clutching knowledge in your hand. Anyway, where were we? Its creation gave him confidence and strength, so that he wrote out of all the fullness of his interests, finding in himself and his thought a sufficient subject for poetry. The first poems relating to A Vision appeared in The Wild Swans at Cool, 1919, The Phases of the Moon, and Hic and Illy, and perhaps the most impressive of them, The Second Coming in Michael Robartes and The Dancer, 1921. These two volumes show the reblossoming of his poetry after the cold winter rages of responsibilities. In such poems as In Memory of Major Robert Gregory, Easter 1916, and A Prayer for My Daughter, Yeats is able to write with authority, to blend his appreciation of beauty with a sense of the tragic rather than the pathetic elements of life, to give a significance of the ordinary events of life which his earlier poetry avoided, and to attain in the process a personal means of achieving public speech and poetry. His life had blossomed too. The erstwhile revolutionary turned cynic now became a senator of the Irish Free State, and an active, constructive one at that. All the senators, himself included, seemed to him like coral insects with some design in our heads of the ultimate island. He spoke frequently and made his main contribution as chairman of the Commission on Coinage. His report is a model of its kind, though he regarded all matters connected with art or literature as coming within his province, and on these he was heard with respect. Among school children gives us a brief vignette of him as a 60-year-old, smiling, public man. The award of the Nobel Prize for Poetry gave public recognition to his work. He had bought Tor Valley Lee, a Norman tower in Galway. I'm just thinking Tor, where he now lived for part of the year. It was a visible symbol of the Anglo-Irish tradition which he began to explore excitedly. He read Swift, Goldsmith, Berkeley and Burke, and saw himself as an inheritor of their traditions, where plain speech and clarity were the basis of rhetoric. I do like plain speech and clarity myself. The true, even if it cuts both ways, delivered plainly and honestly, heartfelt, is always most welcome in my communications. The Yeats line was secure now. Oh, bless. For the birth of his daughter was followed by that of his son. With this flowering of his life, when the opposites seemed conjoined, poet and Nobel Prize winner, man of action and senator, came the maturity of his style. He uses a symbolism which is direct speech. It records the richness of his life as well as its bitterness. Try not to cry here. As his youthful ambitions were realised, he saw the paradoxes of life. Irish freedom was achieved, but the glorious great houses were burnt down. Wisdom might perhaps compensate him for the loss of youth, but as his body aged, his muse grew younger. The real man, the imagination which liveth forever. What a lovely way of putting that. As a result, he wrote The Tower and Sailing to Byzantium, passionate poems of tension between the sensual and the spiritual, their unity arising out of his own complexity. This warring of the antinomies continued in The Winding Stair, 1933, in a dialogue of self and soul, with its triumphant pagan affirmation of belief in human life, which was echoed later in Vacillation. I like that word, vacillation. Inability to make up your mind, people of Earth. Vacillating from one thing to the other. The contrast lay in the passing of glory. Cooley Park, the significance of which as a focal point of Irish culture he celebrated in Cooley Park 1929, had been sold to the Forestry Department of the Land Commission with the understanding that Lady Gregory should rent the house and part of the demesne until her death. Reasonable. Now in Cooley Park and Ballylee 1931, he realises Lady Gregory is dying, and with her the dignity and loveliness of a house which symbolised the inherited yet living glory of an aristocratic life. Yeats himself suffered from severe illness in the winter of 1927 to 1928, as is evidenced by At Algeciras, a meditation upon death. But the spring of 1929 was an exuberantly creative period when he wrote several of the Crazy Jane poems and the other lyrics which appeared in Words for Music, perhaps, 1931. A full moon in March 1935 contained supernatural songs written out of a dun-like delight in obscure thought condensed into arresting phrase. He was working with Sri Purohit Swami. Sri Purohit Swami, on a translation of the Upanishads and compiling the Oxford Book of Modern Verse when he had another serious illness. But his poetry continued to develop, and he prayed for an old man's frenzy in order to remake himself, to remodel his personality. He wrote out of rage and lust. Why should not old men be mad? Asks one poem. But also out of a sense of simplicity and grandeur. His moods of unity could produce in last poems such Olympian poetry as The Municipal Gallery Revisited or Beautiful, Lofty Things, in which he praised his friends generously and warmly, concentrating brilliantly upon aspects of their work or lives, which he caught in terse, unforgettable phrases. The gyres and the statues reverted to the material of a vision, while the circus animal's desertion analysed his career with devastating honesty. Filled with energy, he fought death to the end, my kind of guy. But in The Man and the Echo, came to realise that all he knew was that he did not know what death brought. Peace, my friend, eternal peace and sunshine of a spotless mind, and perhaps eternal love and joy too. I, for one, am looking forward to it at the appointed time, appointed by the Holy One in all manifestations, and Santa Muerte, and whoever takes me by the hand at the end and rocks me in my cradle into the beyond. But it's a beautiful day today, people of Earth. We're going to enjoy all our days on Earth, regardless of what anyone else thinks of it. fuck then? My characteristic defiance my psychiatrist admires so much. Well, I'm a revolutionary and anarchist after all. Just don't give me any guns, because I can't see straight and bullets will be flying in the opposite directions and miss the target and take out some innocent person. That would be dreadful. He hated old age. Yes, it's very debilitating and crippling. He called upon his ancestors to judge what he had done and, "Are you content?" And he wrote under Ben Bourbon as his own epitaph and elegy. It's funny, I thought about doing that a few days ago too. Thought I must prepare, have everything prepared. Wouldn't hurt, would it? Girl Scouts, not that I was ever a Girl Scout, but one should always be prepared, people are there. Wow, I could have a lot of fun with that, to be honest. Oh, the things I could say. But why wait? Let's just have it all out now. Have our little purge and resurge and start life again, shall we? And with all its passionate affirmation of what made up for him, the indomitable qualities of the Irish, qualities which ensured the success of his long struggle to make himself a great and always an Irish poet. He died in Roquebrune in January 1939. His body was brought back to Ireland and interred at Drumcliff in September 1948. So what's that? I guess they had to wait till the war had ended. But that's quite some years after his death. 9 years to be exact. Wow. But he was brought home to the ancestral lands, and I'm sure his soul was quite contented with that. And so we're 1 hour and 12 minutes in, but let us begin reading. It's quite fabulous poetry from Crossways. The Song of the Happy Shepherd. The woods of Arcady are dead, and over is their antique joy. Of old the world on dreaming fed, grey truth is now her painted toy. Yet still she turns her restless head, but oh, sick children of the world, of all the many changing things, in dreary dancing past us whirled, to the cracked tune that Kronos sings. Words alone are certain good. Where are now the warring kings? Word bemockers? By the rood, where are now the warring kings? An idle word is now their glory, by the stammering schoolboy said, reading some entangled story. The kings of the old time are dead. The wandering earth herself may be only a sudden flaming word, in clanging space a moment heard, troubling the endless reverie. Then nowise worship dusty deeds, nor seek, for this is also sooth, to hunger fiercely after truth, lest all thy toiling only breeds new dreams, new dreams. There is no truth. saving in thine own heart. Seek then no learning from the starry men who follow with the optic glass the whirling ways of stars that pass. Seek then, for this is also sooth, no word of theirs, the cold star bane, has cloven and rent their hearts in twain, and death is all their human truth. So dead is all their human truth. Go gather by the humming sea some twisted echo harbouring shell, and to its lips thy story tell, and they thy comforters will be, rewording in melodious guile thy fretful words a little while, till they shall singing fade in ruth, and die a pearly brotherhood. For words alone are certain good. Sing then, for this is also sooth. I must be gone, there is a grave where daffodil and lily wave, and I would please the hapless fawn, buried under the sleepy ground, with mirthful songs before the dawn. His shouting days with mirth were crowned, and still I dream he treads the lawn, walking ghostly in the dew, pierced by my glad singing through my songs of old earth's dreamy youth. But, ah, she dreams not now. Dream thou, for fair are poppies on the brow. Dream, dream, for this is also sooth. The Sad Shepherd. There was a man whom sorrow named his friend, and he, of his high comrade sorrow dreaming, went walking with slow steps along the gleaming and humming sands where windy surges wend. And he called loudly to the stars to bend from their pale thrones and comfort him, that they among themselves laugh on and sing alway. And then the man whom sorrow named his friend cried out, "Dim sea, hear my most piteous story." The sea swept on and cried her old cry still, rolling along in dreams from hill to hill. He fled the persecution of her glory, and in a far-off gentle valley stopping, cried all his story to the dewdrops glistening. But naught they heard, for they are always listening, the dewdrops, for the sound of their own dropping. And then the man whom sorrow named his friend sought once again the shore, and found a shell, and thought, I will my heavy story tell, till my own words, re-echoing, shall send their sadness through a hollow, pearly heart, and my own tale again for me shall sing, and my own whispering words be comforting. And lo, my ancient burden may depart. Then he sang softly nigh the pearly rim, but the sad dweller by the seaway's lone changed all he sang to inarticulate moan among her wildering whirls, forgetting him. Ephemera. Your eyes that once were never weary of mine are bowed, bowed in sorrow under pendulous lids, because our love is waning. And then she, although our love is waning, let us stand by the lone border of the lake once more, together in that hour of gentleness, when the poor tired child passion falls asleep. How far away the stars seem, and how far is our first kiss, and how old my heart. Pensive they paced along the faded leaves, while slowly he whose hand held hers replied, passion has often worn our wandering hearts. The woods were round them, and the yellow leaves fell like faint meteors in the gloom, and once a rabbit, old and lame, limped down the path. Autumn was over him, and now they stood on the lone border of the lake once more. Turning, he saw that she had thrust dead leaves gathered in silence, dewy as her eyes, in bosom and hair. Ah, do not mourn, he said, that we are tired, for other loves await us. Hate on and love through unrepining hours. Before us lies eternity. Our souls are love and a continual farewell. The Stolen Child. Where dips the rocky highland of Sleuth Wood in the lake, there lies a leafy island where flapping herons wake the drowsy water rats. There we've hid our fairy vats, full of berries and of reddest stolen cherries. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wave of moonlight glosses the dim grey sands with light, far off by furthest Rosses, we foot it all the night, weaving olden dances, mingling hands and mingling glances, till the moon has taken flight. To and fro we leap, and chase the frothy bubbles, while the world is full of troubles, and is anxious in its sleep. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star, we seek for slumbering trout, and whispering in their ears, give them unquiet dreams, leaning softly out from ferns that drop their tears over the young streams. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Away with us he's going, the solemn-eyed. He'll hear no more the lowing of the calves on the warm hillside, or the kettle on the hob sing peace into his breast, or see the brown mice bob round and round the oatmeal chest. For he comes, the human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for a world more full of from a world more full of weeping than he can understand. As you notice, I looked up before I began that poem. I had a surge of energy around me, and it's true, you know, that the She and Island are known to steal children and also offer back changelings. It's well documented in fairy lore. Down by the Sally Gardens. Down by the Sally Gardens my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow-white feet. She bid me take love easy, as the leaves grow on the tree, but I, being young and foolish, with her would not agree. In a field by the river my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she laid her snow-white hand. She bid me take life easy, as the grass grows on the weirs, but I was young and foolish, and now am full of tears. The Ballad of Moll McGee. Come round me, little childer, there, don't fling stones at me, because I mutter as I go, but pity Moll McGee. My man was a poor fisher, with shorelines in the say. My work was salting herrings the whole of the long day, and sometimes from the salting shed I scarce could drag my feet under the blessed moonlight along the pebbly street. I'd always been but weakly, and my baby was just born. A neighbour minded her by day, I minded her till morn. I lay upon my baby, ye little childer dear. I looked on my cold baby when the morn grew frosty and clear. A weary woman sleeps so hard, my man grew red and pale, and gave me money and bade me go to my own place, Kinsale. He drove me out and shut the door and gave his curse to me. I went away in silence, no neighbour could I see. The windows and the doors were shut, one star shone faint and green. The little straws were turning round across the bare boreen. I went away in silence beyond old Martin's byre. I saw a kindly neighbour blowing her morning fire. She drew from me my story, my money's all used up, and still with pitying, scorning eye, she gives me bite and sup. She says my man will surely come and fetch me home again, but always as I'm moving round, without doors or within, piling the wood or piling the turf or going to the well, I'm thinking of my baby and keening to myself. And sometimes I'm sure she knows when opening wide his door. God lights the stars, his candles, and looks upon the poor. So now, ye little childer, you won't fling stones at me, but gather with your shining looks and pity Mulmagee. From the Rose. To the rose upon the rood of time. Red rose, proud rose, sad rose of all my days, come near me when I sing the ancient ways. Cuckoolan battling with the bitter tide, the druid grey wood-nurtured, quiet-eyed, who cast round Fergus dreams and ruin untold, and thine own sadness, whereof stars grown old, in dancing silver-sandalled on the sea, singing their high and lonely melody. Come near, that no more blinded by man's fate, I find under the boughs of love and hate, in all poor foolish things that live a day, eternal beauty wandering on her way. Come near, come near, come near. Ah, leave me still a little space for the rose breath to fill, lest I no more hear common things that crave, the weak worm hiding down in its small cave. The field mouse running by me in the grass, and heavy mortal hopes that toil and pass, but seek alone to hear the strange things said by God to the bright hearts of those long dead, and learn to chaunt a tongue men do not know. Come near, I would, before my time to go, sing of old Ire and the ancient ways. Red rose, proud rose, sad rose, of all my days. Fergus and the Druid. Fergus. This whole day have I followed in the rocks, and you have changed and flowed from shape to shape, first as a raven on whose ancient wings scarcely a feather lingered, then you seemed a weasel moving on from stone to stone, and now at last you wear a human shape, a thin grey man, half lost in gathering night. Druid. What would you, king of the proud red branch kings? Fergus. This would I say, most wise of living souls. Young subtle Concubar sat close by me when I gave judgment, and his words were wise, and what to me was burden without end, to him seemed easy, so I laid the crown upon his head to cast away my sorrow. Druid. What would you, king of the proud red branch kings? Fergus. A king and proud, and that is my despair. I feast amid my people on the hill, and pace the woods, and drive my chariot wheels in the white border of the murmuring sea, and still I feel the crown upon my head. Druid. What would you, Fergus? Fergus. Be no more a king, but learn the dreaming wisdom that is yours. Druid. Look on my thin grey hair and hollowed cheeks, and on these hands that may not lift the sword, this body trembling like a wind-blown reed. No woman's loved me, no man sought my help. Fergus. A king is but a foolish labourer who wastes his blood to be another's dream. Druid. Take, if you must, this little bag of dreams, unloose the cord, and they will wrap you round. Fergus. I see my life go drifting like a river. From change to change I have been many things. A green drop in the surge, a gleam of light upon a sword, a fir tree on a hill, an old slave grinding at a heavy quern, a king sitting upon a chair of gold. And all these things were wonderful and great. But now I have grown nothing, knowing all. Ah, Druid, Druid, how great webs of sorrow lay hidden in this small slate-coloured thing. Cuchulains fight with the sea, or cuchulains. Let's find out how to pronounce that, because it's going to come up a lot in his poetry. I don't want to be ignorant.
We are looking at how to pronounce cuchulain, cuchulain, cuchulain.
Cuchulain.
Here are more videos on how to pronounce famous names from Scottish, Irish, and Celtic mythologies. See you there.
Cool. Right. Oh, so I was right. Cuchulain. Well, there you go. I must have heard it somewhere to get that right. Cuchulain's fight with the sea. A man came slowly from the setting sun to Emer, rattling raiment in her dun, and said, I am that swineherd whom you bid go watch the road between the wood and tide, and now I have no need to watch it more. Then Emer cast the web upon the floor, and raising arms all raddled with the dye, parted her lips with a loud sudden cry. That swineherd stared upon her face and said, No man alive, no man among the dead, has won the gold his cars of battle bring. But if your master comes home triumphing, why must you blench and shake from foot to crown? Thereon he shook the Moor and cast him down upon the web-heaped floor and cried his word. With him is one sweet-throated like a bird. You dare me to my face? And thereupon she smote with raddled fist, and where her son herded the cattle came with stumbling feet and cried with angry voice, It is not meet to idle life away, a common herd. I have long waited, mother, for that word, but wherefore now? There is a man to die. You have the heaviest arm under the sky. Whether under its daylight or its stars, my father stands amid his battle cars. But you have grown to be the taller man, yet somewhere under starlight or the sun my father stands. Aged, worn out with wars on foot, on horseback, or in battle cars. I only ask what way my journey lies, for he who made you bitter made you wise. The red branch camp in a great company between Wood's Rim and the horses of the sea. Go there and light a campfire at Wood's Rim, but tell your name and lineage to him whose blade compels, and wait till they have found some feasting man that the same oath has bound. Among those feasting men Cuckoo-Lane dwelt, and his young sweetheart close beside him knelt, stared on the mournful wonder of his eyes, even as spring upon the ancient skies, and pondered on the glory of his days, and all around the harp string told his praise. And Conchubar, the red branch king of kings, with his own fingers touched the brazen strings. At last Cuchulainn spake, some man has made his evening fire amid the leafy shade. I have often heard him singing to and fro. I have often heard the sweet sound of his bow. Seek out what man he is. One went and came. He bade me let all know he gives his name at the sword point, and waits till we have found some feasting man that the same oath has bound. Cuchulainn cried, I am the only man of all this host so bound from childhood on. After short fighting in the leafy shade, he spake to the young man, Is there no maid who loves you, no white arms to wrap you round? Or do you long for the dim, sleepy ground that you have come and dared me to my face? The dooms of men are in God's hidden place. Your head awhile seemed like a woman's head that I loved once. Again the fighting sped, but now the war rage in Cuchulainn woke, and through that new blade's guard the old blade broke and pierced him. Speak before your breath is dumb. Cuchulainn I, mighty Cuchulainn's son. I put you from your pain, I can no more. While day its burden on to evening bore, with head bowed on his knees, Cuchulainn stayed. When Conchubar sent that sweet-throated maid, and she, to win him, his grey hair caressed, in vain her arms, in vain her soft white breast. Then Conchubar, the subtlest of all men, ranking his druids round him, 10 by 10, spake thus, Cuchulainn will dwell there and brood for 3 days more in dreadful quietude, and then arise and raving, slay us all. Chaunt in his ear delusions magical, that he may fight the horses of the sea. The Druids took them to their mystery and chaunted for 3 days. Cuchulainn stared on the horses of the sea, and heard the cars of battle, and his own name cried, and fought with the invulnerable tide. It's reminiscent of that story, The Last Unicorn, by Peter S. Beagle, isn't it? The horses coming out of the sea for the last battle. It's probably the inspiration came from this, or from mythology, Cuchulainn. Now I've put a little asterisk next to this poem, which meant I probably had, I don't remember now. There's another one there. So I must have had to read it out in a tutorial or deconstruct it, or I don't remember. So long ago. 17, did I say I was? 17. And I'm 60 now. 43 years ago. I didn't complete a degree due to all the bullying and rape threats and sexual harassment and ugliness at Victoria University of Wellington. So fuck them. Cost me potential careers. But anyway, it's my trauma issues. I was so traumatised. At 17 I didn't realise. I thought I could do anything and survive and thrive, and 43 years later, what am I reduced to? Living on a pension, reading stories for free on YouTube to my very few subscribers who go, "Oh, Tanya, smallest violin, read on." If I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't be doing it. Trust me on that one. So I hope you enjoy my offerings out into internet world and the ether, direct from William Butler Yeats to you, under orders from my Fae spirit that insisted I immerse myself in his world. It's actually good for me, to be honest. It's kind of healing. So I do it gladly, in service to the gods, if not to mortal men and women and children. The lake isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always, night and day, I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway, or on the pavements grey, I hear it in the deep heart's call. The pity of love. A pity beyond all telling is hid in the heart of love. The folk who are buying and selling, the clouds on their journey above, the cold wet winds ever blowing, and the shadowy hazel grove where mouse grey waters are flowing, threaten the head that I love. The sorrow of love. The brawling of a sparrow in the eaves, the brilliant moon, and all the milky sky, and all that famous harmony of leaves, had blotted out man's image and his cry. A girl arose that had red, mournful lips, and seemed the greatness of the world in tears, doomed like Odysseus and the labouring ships, and proud as Priam murdered with his peers. Arose, and on the instant clamorous eaves, a climbing moon upon an empty sky, and all that lamentation of the leaves could but compose man's image and his cry. When you are old, and I've written here to Maud Gunn as a note, so it must have been in my tutorial that they must have said it was written with her in mind. It's only another short poem. When you are old and grey and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read, and dream of this soft look your eyes had once, and of the shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. This book's almost falling apart with age. It's good that we're reading it again before it completely disintegrates, but I can buy another copy. It's not the end of the world, people are there. But all the pages are all going to fly out of it. I won't read for much longer because I'm quite tired, so perhaps just 2 more poems and then I'll call it an afternoon. The white birds. I would that we were, my beloved, white birds on the foam of the sea. We tire of the flame of the meteor before it can fade and flee. And the flame of the blue star of twilight, hung low on the rim of the sky, has awaked in our hearts, my beloved, a sadness that may not die. A weariness comes from those dreamers, dew-dabbled, the lily and rose. Ah, dream not of them, my beloved. The flame of the meteor that goes, or the flame of the blue star that lingers, hung low in the fall of the dew. For I would we were changed to white birds on the wandering foam, I and you. I'm haunted by numberless islands, and many a Danaan shore, where time would surely forget us, and sorrow come near us no more. Soon far from the rose and the lily, and fret of the flames would we be, were we only white birds, my beloved, buoyed out on the foam of the sea. The man who dreamed of fairyland. 3:11 p.m. Yes, I'll finish with this poem. It's quite a long one, this one. He stood among a crowd at Dromahair, his heart hung all upon a silken dress, and he had known at last some tenderness, before earth took him to her stony care. But when a man poured fish into a pile, it seemed they raised their little silver heads, and sang what gold morning or evening sheds upon a woven, world-forgotten isle, where people love beside the ravelled seas, that time can never mar a lover's vows, under that woven, changeless roof of boughs. The singing shook him out of his new ease. He wandered by the sands of Lissadown. His mind ran all on money cares and fears, and he had known at last some prudent years, before they heaped his grave under the hill. But while he passed before a plashy place, a lugworm with its grey and muddy mouth sang that somewhere to north or west or south there dwelt a gay, exulting, gentle race under the golden or the silver skies, that if a dancer stayed his hungry foot, it seemed the sun and moon were in the fruit, and at that singing he was no more wise. He mused beside the well of Scanavon. He mused upon his mockers without fail. His sudden vengeance were a country tale, when earthy night had drunk his body in. But one small knot grass growing by the pool sang where, unnecessary cruel voice. Old silence bids its chosen race rejoice. Whatever ravelled waters rise and fall, or stormy silver fret the gold of day, and midnight there enfold them like a fleece, and lover there by lover be at peace. The tale drove his fine angry mood away. He slept under the hill of Lunagal, and might have known its last unhaunted sleep. Under that cold and vapour turbaned steep, now that the earth had taken man and all, did not the worms that spired around his bones proclaim with that unwearied, reedy cry that God has laid his fingers on the sky, that from those fingers glittering summer runs upon the dancer by the dreamless wave? Why should those lovers that no lovers miss dream until God burn nature with a kiss? The man has found no comfort in the grave. Right, that's us from Titania's Realm. There's lots more to read. Let me find a bookmark. I have to put this back. I shall be back probably tomorrow. Tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow in the evening, because I'm getting my hair done. Tomorrow. But anyway, if not tomorrow, then the next day, people of Earth. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And if you didn't, you have the power of the red button, the little square in the middle, the off switch. But I do hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoy my dulcet tones and my weird dramatic extravagances and my lilting synergy with the gods, then please like and subscribe. But I hold no man, woman or child beholden to me, so do as ye willest, but be kind. I bid you adieu. Have a wonderful afternoon if you're in Brisbane. The time is now 3:18 p.m. But wherever you are on planet Earth, stay free, stay wild, stay joyous, stay whimsical, and love who you love, but love them truly or not at all.